Welcome to Homework Answers. We're going through the textbook C++ Programs to Accompany Programming Logic and Design, 8th edition by Joanne Smith. And in this video we're covering Lab 3-2. With this problem, make sure you correct the few changes that I've made, and also take note that I've added a section for hours and minutes. So the data file does not, or the lab doesn't require you to have hours and minutes displayed. But that's a little addition that I've put in there, and there's a cool bit of code below that we'll get to, that I'll show you how you can have a preceding 0 for minutes. But let's go ahead and start from the beginning here. A lot of this should already be coded out for you, and there's just a few things you'll have to put in. So this right here, BOOL, valid date, and then integer, that was already there. I'm not really sure what that does. All the rest looks familiar to me. Let's go ahead to the declare variables. The data file, they've also put constant, integer, and then they've got all the constants laid out on one line, separated by a comma. You know, all the constants are separated by a comma, and then it's ended with a semicolon. I've just gone ahead and put them all in separate lines. It seems like most would agree that this is best practice, or at least from what I've read. So I did that because it seemed like the right way to do it. And then we've got this Boolean variable here that's initialized to true, because that can only have true or false, that data type right there. And the next area we've got is an area to have all of our inputs, year, month, and day, and then I've added hour and minutes. You'll also notice in the constants area here, I've done minimum and maximum hour, minimum, maximum minutes. You don't need those either, but I put those in there because I'm going to have the output do time as well. The next area, we're going to need to figure out all of the cases where the date could be invalid. So anywhere where the date or time can be, change that variable valid date to false, and output this is not a valid date. We need to figure out what all those are. So if you look over this, just kind of look over it carefully, you'll notice all of this makes sense here. If the year is a negative year, that doesn't make sense. If it's less than or equal to the minimum year, it's an invalid year. And the same with the months. You don't have -1 or 14 for your month. A month being greater than the max month here, 12. Well, that's an invalid month. And then same with days. These two lines here, that's or. That means or. And the character for that, if you look on, like if you're using a Mac, above your return or enter key, there's a button there, so you just push shift, hold shift, and then push that button, and that's how you get that symbol. So I've got it kind of all of the cases where all of these constants could be false. The next area is to figure out what we're going to output. So you say, if the valid date, if none of these ended up being false, and valid date is equal to, two equal signs, equal to true, then we're going to output this statement. And it's basically the same with the else. If some of these came out false, we're going to output this statement. The only difference between these two is that says invalid and that says valid. I've also made a little note here to show you what the template for our output is going to look like. So all of this is going to translate to this: months, days, year, hours, and minutes. Now, something cool, the reason why I put the hours and the minutes in this is because I wanted to show you, if you have a time where you want to have maybe 8:05 a.m. and you input 8 and then you input 5, because you don't want 50, it's going to output as 8 8:5, which would be 850. That's not what you want. You would want 805. So how do you get that preceding 0? And the way you do that is you make use of these two lines here, these two little things. Set fill, and then I've got this like apostrophe, 0, apostrophe, and then set W, and there's a 2. I'm assuming this means it's 2 characters wide, and you fill that preceding area with a 0. Because if you type in a 5, it's saying, well, you only typed in 1 character. We need 2 characters. See, 2 here. So it's going to say that first slot is going to be filled with a 0 then. And that's how you get that to work. Those don't work unless you have this in the header. So using std : set W, and then the same thing underneath with just set fill, instead of set W. So you'll need to have those two up there, and then this works. So that's how you can get a little fancy with your time if you haven't gotten that far in your lessons or your class. You might be able to impress the teacher or the professor with this. Let's run it and check it out. So I've got, let's do 2016, month 1, day 24th, the hour, let's say it's 14, because we're doing military time, and enter the minutes of the hour. I want it to be 14:05, so I'm just going to type in a 5, and I want it to come out as 14:05, not 14:5 or 50. And see, we get exactly what we want because of these two things here. And it is a valid date. So let's go ahead and check out what it would look like if we have an invalid date. 2016, the month 13 doesn't exist. The day, let's do the 1st of that non-existent month. The hour, 0, even like 12 in the morning. The minutes for the hour, let's say it's 30. I'm going to type in a 0 this time. So it's saying that this is an invalid date. The only reason it's invalid is because 13 is not a month. 12 would be. This is an appropriate time in military time, and I'll just go ahead and demonstrate that real fast. 16 with the correct month, 12, hour, 0, and the minutes. So it would be 12:30 a.m. Valid date. So it's pretty cool how you can get the preceding 0 in there if you just type in those two simple things right there and have these two simple things in the head. But that looks good for this problem. I think that's about it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lab.